looking at entering into that management and leadership role was something very, very different because, well, I didn't learn about it in the past. I did not really know what to expect. And then as I started getting more and more into it, I was perplexed and like, wow, is this the way decisions are made in healthcare? You know, whether it's in a boardroom or in a conference room. I was just shocked that this is the other side in which we were never taught.
Paging Dr. Cook. Paging Dr. Cook. Dr. Cook, you're wanted in the OR. Dr. Cook, you're wanted in the OR.
Welcome to the Prescription for Success podcast with your host, Dr. Randy Cook.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Prescription for Success. I'm Dr. Randy Cook, your host for the podcast, which is a production of MD Coaches, providing leadership and executive coaching for physicians by physicians to overcome burnout, transition your career, develop as a leader, or whatever your goal might be. Visit MD Coaches on the web at mymdcoaches.com because you're not in this alone. And don't forget, you can get CME credit for listening with us. Just look for the CMFI link in the show notes. My guest today is a board-certified pediatrician, but he also wears lots of other hats, including best-selling author, as well as career and personal development coach. Dr. Jarret Patton took a little time out of his very busy schedule to share some of his secrets to success, so let's hear the conversation. I'm really excited today to be talking with Dr. Jarret Patton, who is up in the great state of Pennsylvania. Jarret, it's great to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, Randy. A pleasurable day to be here.
Well, you have really got a fabulous story and a lot of things that I want to talk about. So let's get right into it. And we always like to begin with beginnings, Jarret. So I'm interested. Now, are you a Pennsylvania native?
No. I actually grew up was born in Connecticut and grew up in central Ohio.
I see. So the Northeast and bordering on the Midwest, I guess, and about where your interest in medicine came from. Were there medical types in the family, or did it come from someplace else?
Yeah, it ended up for me just being kind of an inspiration. I did not have doctors in the family to kind of work with or get some additional insight, but I found that going through my high school years, I had a profound interest in science. So I knew I wanted to do something in science. Biology was a little bit, not concrete enough for me. So I really gravitated toward chemistry. So I headed off to Xavier University of Louisiana to study chemistry. But I knew pretty quickly on that spending my time in a chemistry lab was not going to be the right thing for me because I'm more of a people person. And so it was at that time I started taking that pre-med path.
And at what point in your undergrad work did that happen?
It was pretty early on. Yeah, it was pretty early on. I mean, it was by the end of my first year, I knew that chemistry was really going to become a chemistry pre-med. And I knew that serving doctors was going to be or serving people as a doctor is going to be what I wanted to do. And I thought I was going to be an anesthesiologist. I thought I had it all figured out, even though I didn't know anything about it. Even before I started medical school, I thought I had it all figured out, but things change.
And well, tell me about that. What changed your mind? Obviously, it happened at some point in the midst of your medical education.
So when I was at Case Western in Cleveland for medical school, we had exposure early on to patients. So our first and second year, we had to do some patient encounters outside of the typical anatomy and physiology and pathology that you're learning those first couple of years. And it was that experience that really connected me to primary care. And I thought family medicine almost throughout my med school career until really it was the end of my third year and the beginning of my fourth year when I said, maybe internal medicine isn't really what I thought it was and not really what I want to practice now that I've had a chance to see what it looks like in reality. But little did I know I was drawn to children right from the beginning. But it took me to go through all of those rotations before I could look back and say, you know what? I was happy in pediatrics. I'd really, stayed up on call with the kids. There were just so many things that were screaming to me, but because it was one of my first rotations, I had no idea that pediatrics was going to be the choice. And ultimately, I settled on that one.
I think that's kind of unusual. And all the people that I talk to on this podcast, at some point there is a decision about what the specialty is going to be, and they just kind of go for it. But for you to have the patience to literally see the entire landscape before you make the decision kind of paints you as perhaps having a little more wisdom than most medical students. Are you willing to admit to that, or what do you think?
That's a great way to put it, Randy. I looked at it more until this point. Now I'll be saying it was a very wise choice and I was ahead of my time. So thank you for that. But what I'll say is that for me, it ended up all of the things that I thought I was really going to like. They were cool. They were interesting. You could do some hands-on things, but I couldn't see myself doing that for the rest of my year. And that's why pediatrics stood out to me. It was after an international health elective I did in Ghana that I knew that when I came back to the States, I knew I was going into pediatrics. And in fact, I had to add on some fourth year electives that I did not sign up for. I mean, that's how late I was in that decision process. But it's something I never looked back on. And I was so happy that I made that decision.
I can imagine that your time in a third world country must have been a powerful experience. You want to share some of that with us?
I love sharing some of these stories, Randy, because that is what really shaped my career as a physician, and especially coming back to primary care. Because I spent 6 weeks in Ghana, and I was in, you fly into the cities, but I actually was in a remote village about an hour outside of the capital city, seeing patients in a outpatient clinic. And it was there that the doctors there really taught me how important your physical exam skills are, because, well, when you're practicing, it was literally in the middle of nowhere. All of the technology, all of the tests, all of the radiology, all of the wonderful things in our own healthcare system that we have in abundance. And obviously we have to pull back and try not to use all of these resources all the time. When you go somewhere else, especially in central Ghana, there are none of those things. Maybe if you're in the academic center, you can have access to some of these things, but the large majority of people don't have access to testing at their fingertips. So I was able to see the doctors work up patients and diagnose patients without, going to, write some blood tests or order some radiology tests. And in fact, the biggest example of this in my life happened right in this small village while I was there. The under 20 national Ghanaian soccer team practiced nearby. And there was an incident at practice one day, and one of the players started having mental status changes. And he became so bizarre that they said, we need to get him into medical care. Turned out he had a head injury during practice, and he was deteriorating literally in front of our eyes. And not being in a central area, he started to decompensate, and the doctors started running a code. And a code when you're not inside a medical center, a code when you don't have access to care, simply was coming into his room, assessing him, giving him one precordial thump, and realizing there was nothing there. There's no life support. There's no intubation. There's no monitors. There's nothing. And the doctors there had to make that decision knowing that they couldn't do anything for him, and they couldn't transport him anywhere quickly enough to seek the attention. So here's one of the country's top soccer talents that died for something that would have been certainly treatable, and probably death would have been avoidable if it happened here in the United States. But it gave me that insight to say, you know what? We're certainly blessed to live in the United States and have access to this healthcare system, because it certainly doesn't run like that in the rest of the world.
And, I was going to ask you, let me begin with how things were when you first went into private practice. Did you feel like, no doubt about it, I made the right decision and this is exactly where I should be?
Absolutely. I mean, I figured out pretty early. I had a strong sense of community, and I really wanted to work in neighborhoods that didn't have access to care. And part of that came out of my experience in Ghana. I said, well, there's lots of resources in these places. I can at least do my part and try to put myself where there may not be as many resources. And so I love to work in community practices, and working with kids every day and taking care of their families all the time was something that drove me. And I was happy doing that every single day. But part of my career said, well, I feel like I have more to offer than even that. And I had interest in leadership. And I really wanted to develop my leadership skills and not only be able to take care of the Smith family and the Jones family and the Enriquez family one by one. I wanted to be leading part of the healthcare mission so that there could be changes that could be made for the better for people that I didn't even have to touch directly. So it was in that case that I really started going on in leadership. I went on to become a medical director of a practice and division chief and some other leadership roles.
That's exactly where I wanted you to take the conversation. And I'm wondering, at what stage of your career? Was it 2 or 3 years in, or was it a decade in when you realized that there was an opportunity to have an influence not only on day-to-day patient care, but the big picture? When did that thought enter your head?
It was within the first couple of years, because coming out of residency, I always felt like, all right, I need to learn tons. I practiced. I trained in NYU in Bellevue. So I saw stuff coming in from all over the world that, that I just never would have seen anywhere else. However, I knew that I did not want to only see patients in my career, because I knew I had more to offer, and I knew that the leadership was something that interested me. And I thought that, I'd be seeing patients throughout the rest of my life as a part of what I would do, even if that meant that I would, raise up and become CEO of a hospital system or something like that.
Did you feel like you belonged when you got into that more corporate world, or did you find that it was distasteful at all?
Randy, looking at entering into that management and leadership role was something very, very different, because, well, I didn't learn about it in the past. I did not really know what to expect. And then as I started getting more and more into it, I was perplexed and like, wow, is this the way decisions are made in healthcare? Whether it's in a boardroom or in a conference room. I was just shocked that this is the other side in which we were never taught.
Do you think you were able to bring a clinical influence to those decisions in the boardroom that made a difference for people?
Absolutely. By the time I was chief of medical staff of an 8-hospital system, I had a seat on the board of trustees of this system. So I was meeting with the board of directors often. And that link was so vital, having someone who could tell a story through the eyes of patients that are being seen, within that institution, and speak up for the patients that may be there. In the same hand, speak up for the doctors and speak up for the nurses and the healthcare team and try to look for changes that were there. But being in that boardroom provided the storytelling necessary to add the details to those spreadsheets that everybody looks at. And they boil everything down to a number, and it comes with one over here and one may come from this column and that equals 2. And I would be sitting at the table and said, well, no, 1 + 1 doesn't always equal 2 when you're looking at the spreadsheet. Let me tell you why. And you can go into that clinical story that changes a picture and can shape policy. And that is the link that was crucial.
Attention healthcare professionals. Have you lost control of your career? Do you feel like you need to hit the reset button? If you're tired of uncertainty, struggling to find balance in your career, frustrated with pay cuts, extended shifts, or insurance aggravation, well then, it's time for you to change your life and carve out the career of your dreams. Join Dr. Jarret Patton and others at Licensed to Live, the conference, July 8 through 10, 2022, live from the Bellevue in Philadelphia. Explore the vast possibilities available to you as a physician or healthcare executive and ignite your career into the life you desire. Hear from expert healthcare professionals as they offer actionable, dynamic, and inspirational information, and get ready to leave inspired, ready to create the career you love, licensed to live. It's time for you to be happy. And as an added benefit, all attendees become subscribers to receive the print copy of Physician Outlook magazine. For early bird reservations, go to rxforsuccesspodcast.com/live. So it sounds like you were in a spot where you really felt good about your earlier decisions. You liked the world of medicine, and you felt like you were influencing the world of medicine in a way that very few doctors ever get to accomplish. And then at some point, the trouble started, and we won't try to tell the whole thing. You've written a book that describes it in pretty good detail called Licensed to Live, and we'll talk about that some more. But I would like for you to give us the 30,000-foot view, if you will, or tell us as much as you like about how things began to unravel.
I loved doing what I was doing. I thought this was going to be my true mission. I was able to take care of patients. I was able to shape policy. I was able to speak on the behalf of the healthcare team, on patients. And I said, this is what I was born to do. And I felt like I was in the part of my career where this is it. I know what I'm doing. I'm on top of it and I'm loving it. But all of that came to a sudden halt when I had a meeting with one of the hospital attorneys that I spoke with quite frequently. And he just came in and looked particularly exasperated that day and said, Jarret, I don't know how to tell you this, but you're under investigation. I said, under investigation? For what? And he took out his laptop and he opened it up and started showing me pictures on Facebook. He said, do you know this person? And I said, no, I don't know this person. And he started showing additional pictures of what I thought may have been the same person. And I said, I don't know who this person is. I don't even have a Facebook account. What's going on? And he said, this woman, you actually saw her 9-month-old son a few weeks ago, and she claims that you were sexually inappropriate with her in the exam room and is going to the police. And right there, everything changed. Everything became silent. Everything was a blur. And ultimately, what she said is she went to the police, she filed charges, and that started a tailspin of my career. So suddenly I found myself being locked into handcuffs, being booked in the county jail, and looking at my life deteriorating right in front of me. I mean, things were being yanked from me right and left. Losing licenses in multiple states. My board certification was under scrutiny, and all of these things before I could even say anything to even try to defend myself. But ultimately, it came around. I mean, it took a year and a half for me to work on this, but ultimately I did have my day in court where everybody saw that this was just some sort of scam. There it was. My licenses had come back before my criminal trial and things started falling back into place. But Randy, as you said, my life and my career were already destroyed. So I had to rebuild from nothing.
I really want to underscore that. In today's world, a majority of physicians have had to deal with a malpractice claim at least once during their career. And when that happens, you get the notice, you get the summons, the lawyers come in and those kind of things. Meanwhile, you go about your day-to-day business of taking care of patients. But for you, that was really not the case, was it?
No. For me, it was very different. Being caught in the malpractice system can be a terrible strain on someone who's already stressed. But most of the times, you get to continue and practice your every day, and you just have this case hanging over your head, which provides that stress. And in my case, everything came to a complete stop because there was absolutely nothing that I could do. Being one of the top physician executives in this large system, I knew the rules. I knew what the guidelines were. So I knew what my eventual fate was going to be because of this. And so I knew my job was going to be lost. I knew that I had a good chance that I was going to at least temporarily lose some licensure, and there was going to be absolutely nothing that I could do. I was very hopeful that the trial would be settled and quickly over, but just one of the tactics that are commonly used is delay, and hopefully they'll roll over. It's never quick. The lawyers have that game down pat. So for me, it was just a sudden devastation, and it gave me the chance in which I had to rebuild.
As you say, you were eventually exonerated. How did you decide where to start with the process of putting your life back together again?
I knew I had to start with myself because I had gone through such trauma going through this system. I knew that I needed to build myself up throughout this process. Now, one of the great things, there are lots of great things that happened to me during this time. The biggest of which is I had lots of free time on my hands now. I could just do whatever, I wanted to do or could do. And obviously that sounds like fun, but when your head is spinning, it's not that great. But what I was able to do is really reconnect with my family and my kids and my wife, because now I'm suddenly home. I can't even get a job as a truck driver. I described some of that in the book. And I mean, I was unemployable during all of this 18 months. I couldn't find any job doing any type of thing at all. So I said, well, I can be a better father. And that's exactly what I spent time doing. I was out in the yard after school. I was probably one of the best kickball pitchers in the county. So I gained some additional skills, but it goes back to, all right, let's look at this situation. All right, there's some things that I control and there's some things I can't control. I can't control the chaos and the foolishness that's going on out there. But what I can control is my health and my mental health, and make sure that I can be the best person that I can be. And that's where I started.
And you've been very successful with it, I might add. You have quite a lot of visibility in the world of self-improvement. The book is a great one, by the way. It's called License to Live, and it's very short, very readable. As I think I mentioned before, it's sort of a recipe of how to get through these things. You want to give us a little more of a summary so people will have an idea about why they should read it?
And I wrote this book, Randy, during the time when I was off. I said that as I started looking around and I would see stories here of something happened to this doctor, something happened to this doctor, and they're just crazy, crazy stories. And I noticed that some of these doctors come back and resurge and get back to living, and others are never heard from again. And I wanted to start looking at these as almost case studies to find out what people were doing in order to rebuild. I knew what I did and I knew what I had to do. And let me see where there's some commonalities. And as I started writing License to Live, it really was to talk about, one, my story, tell a little bit about this story that happened to me that changed my life for its entirety. And the other part is really to give some help out there, because crazy things happen to people all the time. And we live in a world where, well, the common thing is to just yank stuff and then we'll figure it out later. So you might get a suspension on your license. You might not be able to do something because of a lawsuit. You may actually be held back in some sort of way. So let's look at some of these things. And you have to strip away some of the titles, bring yourself to saying, hey, look, I'm just a person. Let's look at the person. Let's forget about the doctor right now. And I talk to people how to build their credibility, how to get themselves back, how to take care of themselves, worry about the licensure problems later. And I combined it all in this book so that, hey, if you happen to be going through a tough time in your career, you can hear about my story and have some concrete advice on how to get restarted again.
And it seems to me that you have been every bit as successful at coaching and consulting and helping people through these difficult times as you were in your clinical practice. And are you as satisfied with your new role?
You know, Randy, when it came back time to, all the licensure and everything came back and people were like, what, do you want to come back to your job? I had to think about it. I said, yeah, I could probably jump right back in where I left off and dust myself off from the trauma and get back to it. But because of all of the things that I gained in my life during this time, seeing that, maybe I didn't need to spend so much time in hospitals and in clinics and really should do other things with my free time that would make it, my life more enjoyable as a whole. All of these things came as a result of this incident in my life. And the one thing I know I did not want to give up again is my life. So I started with the coaching. I started with the consulting and the speaking and the writing, all because I knew there were parts of my life that were missing and they were neglected while I was working so hard as a physician executive. And I said, now, if I can control this, I can control the way I want to do things.
So just as you discovered that you had something that you could offer with respect to the business of medicine that enlarged your sphere of influence beyond purely clinical, you discovered that your sphere of influence was even larger. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's exactly right. I mean, oftentimes, and this is where I can look back in my own life through our training, through just the way the system is set up. The older you are, the more linear and narrowly focused our training was. And a lot of times it's really focused on hospitals and healthcare systems. And you don't really see the other things that you can do that are outside of that because there's no time to learn about that. And so you don't really learn about that till you get out and be out there later. So, for me to sit there and be interviewed on your podcast or be interviewed on the television news about a topic I have expertise in is something that I find enjoyable now. And I love being on podcasts and the news and all these types of things. But it was something I probably would not have done if I didn't have this storm enter into my life.
Hi, I'm Rhonda Crow, founder and CEO for MD Coaches. Here on RX for Success, we interview a lot of great medical professionals on how they grew their careers, how they overcame challenges, and how they handle day-to-day work. I really hope you're getting a lot of great information. But if you're looking for an answer to a specific problem, management or administration challenge, or if you're feeling just a bit burnt out, like maybe you chose the wrong career, well, then there's a faster way to get the help you need. No, it's not counseling, it's coaching. RX for Success is produced by MD Coaches, a team of physicians who have been where you are. I know you're used to going it alone, but you don't have to. Get the support you need today. Visit us at mymdcoaches.com to schedule your complimentary consultation. Again, that's mymdcoaches.com, because you're not in this alone.
We'll get back to our interview in just a moment, but right now I want to tell you a little bit about Physician Outlook. If you haven't discovered this remarkable magazine, please do so very soon. It was created by physicians, for physicians, to showcase the intersection between clinical and non-clinical interests. Whether it's writing, painting, cooking, politics, and dozens of other topics, Physician Outlook gives a physician perspective. It's available online and in print. It's really unique among physician lifestyle magazines. And like the Prescription for Success podcast, Physician Outlook amplifies the voice of any physician who has something to say. It also engages patients who still believe in physician-led, team-based care. And Prescription for Success listeners can get 3 months free when you enter our promo code RX for Success and select the monthly option at checkout. That's a really great deal on this stunning publication. And now let's get back to today's interview. Well, it's a great story, and you tell it very, very well. I've really enjoyed the book, and I have really enjoyed our conversation here, Jarret. But we're at the point in the show where I like to get out of the way, and it gets to be really good, and I'm going to be quiet. And Dr. Jarret Patton is going to give us his personal prescriptions for success.
These are my personal prescriptions for success. Think of the acronym LIFE, LIFE. This is my personal prescription for success. It's all about your life. L, look at your goals. Look not only at your short-term goals, but look at your long-term goals. All too often, we get caught up in our short-term goals. And as far as career goes, many times that goal is, let me get another paycheck. And that takes you down the wrong path. So look at your short-term goals, but look at your long-term goals. Look at those things that you would like to do where you can find more enjoyment in your life. I, integrate. Integrate your life into work and integrate your work into your life. All too often, we keep our work life and all the aspects of our other life separate. But there may be other ways to look at it. And I'd like to look at ways in which you can integrate both of them together. When you look at celebrities, I've ran into Ice-T and Coco on one of my speaking tours. And Coco spent her life as an entertainer, but one of the things that she does very, very, very well is integrate her life into her work. So she can be a social media influencer. She can be a model. She can do these other things. But you know what? She's living life. So she'll go out there and take a vacation and say, oh, I'll take some time to do a selfie, spend some time on social media because that's what I do for work. But yet I'm living life. So find ways to integrate work into life and life into work. F, fun. Have more fun. One thing, if you do nothing in this podcast, make a commitment to have more fun in your life, because the more fun you have in your life, the more satisfaction you're going to have in your life, and the better your life will be. So and if you're not having fun in your job, let me tell you, you better be looking for another job right now. Just get out the way. And if you're not having fun, then it's time for a change. So F is fun. And E is for expectations. You need to have the best expectations in life. And if you don't have those expectations for you, you'll never have the best. Sometimes people shortchange themselves so much simply because they can't see something great happening in their life. So spend some time, whether you use affirmations, whether you use positive statements, whether you are looking at something that is going to make you to expect more out of life. And the more you expect, the more comes to you. So my prescription to success is all about life.
That is inspiring, just as the rest of your story is inspiring, Jarret, and I really appreciate you sharing that with us. I want to give you an opportunity to talk about all the things that you have to share with the audience if they have any interest in following up on you, and I really hope that they will. But tell us about the book. It's called License to Live. Where can they find it?
Yes, you can find License to Live, A Primer to Rebuilding Your Life After Your Career is Shattered. Anywhere you get your books, online, on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, you name it, it's there. If you have problems setting those expectations, the follow-up License to Live book is License to Live, Daily Affirmations to Rebuild Your Life. And so it is an active affirmations journal, and we take you on a guide on how you can program your mind to transform it into having these positive things manifest in your own life. And one of the things that we like to do is roll all of these concepts up in Licensed to Live, the conference. So we have a conference that we host live in Philadelphia every single year. And for some of you guys, if you're listening early, July 8th, 9th, and 10th, 2020 is when we're having this at the Bellevue Hotel. You can go to licensetolive.com for all the information on the program and the lineup. But we have some great speakers lined up, and we even have CME applied for. So you'll even be able to write this off on your business expenses to show up and learn some strategies in which you can change your life.
It's going to be a great conference, and I'm pretty sure you meant to say July of 2022. You said 2020.
Well, we did have it in July of 2020. You're right. Maybe that was the first one. but we do have. Thank you for that correction, Randy. You're absolutely right. We're talking about July 8th, 9th, and 10th of 2022.
And websites and podcasts where you can be found?
Yes. So you can find more out about me at drjarret.com. You can just spell out the word doctor, J-A, 2 R's, E, 1 T. And you can find me across social media at Dr. Jarret, and much more about the conference and the books at licensedtolive.com.
Well, Dr. Jarret Patton, it has been quite enjoyable today. I've really had my eyes opened a bit from having this conversation with you, and I thank you for being here. It's been a real pleasure.
It's been an absolute pleasure to be here, Randy. Can't wait to meet again.
Thank you so much for listening with us today. As always, we really appreciate a review from you, and a 5-star rating helps us a lot. These ratings give our show much more visibility, and that helps us reach more listeners. If you'd like access to exclusive content, head on over to our Patreon page, where you can see membership-only material, including personal rapid-fire Q&A sessions with our guests and more. To be sure you never miss an episode, visit our website at rxforsuccesspodcast.com to subscribe, and while you're there, learn how you can get CME credit just for listening. Special thanks to Ryan Jones, who created and performs the theme music for our show. And remember, be sure and fill your prescription for success with my next episode.